Beloved, what's up? It is so nice to get back in touch, especially at the new year, because I've got a really important practice for your spiritual journey that is going to support you in so many different ways. Honestly, this is something that I think every single person who has a spiritual practice should know how to do and keep alive throughout their journey. And I'm just super stoked to share this with you today because it's truly like legit a crucial practice that's gonna serve you well. So before we get all into that, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Cynthia Gutierrez of Embodied Ritual, and I am here to guide you through spiritual embodiment so that you can lead a vibrantly healthy, sacred, and sovereign life. And if you're new to my work, then it would be super rad to keep in touch. So please follow Embodied Ritual on Instagram and Facebook, and make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel where you can click the bell and get a heads up about the newest video. All right, cool. So it's honestly been pretty exciting to see a huge rise in consciousness throughout the world, at least in my lifetime that I've noticed. I mean, it seems like spirituality is booming now, and people are recognizing the importance of connecting to their creator, of tapping to their own source of inner power, and trusting in the divine plan that their higher self is guiding them on. I mean, of course, I'm just going to put it out there that there is a whole lot of room for improvement as those of us in this contemporary lifestyle are trying to bring all of this ancient wisdom and like trying to, mold it into this modern society. And it gets a little weird sometimes, but regardless of that, I'm going to say that it does not take away the significance of the ascension process that all of us humans are going through right now and will continue to go through. Okay. And so as people are exploring, experimenting, or at least looking into spirituality and becoming interested, I mean, this may be you, right? It's probably why you're here. It's very important to bring our attention to the universal law of polarity, okay, which states that there is duality in the universe. And some examples of that are like hot and cold, positive and negative, masculine and feminine, light and dark, good and evil. Now, what I am going to say here is that I am a huge supporter of really helping us come to an understanding of our darkness, because we all have a darkness, right? Where there is light, there is also dark. We are a mixture of both light and dark, and it's really important to come to this acceptance, to come to a place of unconditional love and learning how to integrate the two in healthy ways that actually serve us upon this journey. So, I've been told by my spiritual teacher, my main one, she's my main squeeze, Athena Parakis of Sage Goddess, she really brings forth this idea that, okay, we can still work through darkness and our own darkness and get, what people call like shadow work nowadays. Yet there is this line between darkness and evil. Okay, like there is a point where I may be facing my own darkness or facing darkness of someone else, and we might be working on something together or whatever. But once it gets to the point where it becomes evil and super unhealthy and dangerous, and so many different ways to describe it, and it's all situational, of course. It's like I have no tolerance for evil, right? And in my spiritual work, as I'm like really opening myself or expressing myself as someone who's a spiritualist and wants to help other people on their spiritual journey, I draw that line. I have that energetic boundary of what's allowed and what's not allowed. Okay. And so like, I want to work through my shadow, want to work through my darkness to learn how to come into more of a healed space with this kind of work. But once we get into this point of the evil and really coming into awareness of what's not serving us and what's actually diminishing our experience, not just personally, but as a collective, then that's like, you know what, that I do not tolerate. I do not, I would just won't put up with it. Okay. So, I just wanted to draw that distinction of this duality because it's really important to learn how to live with our darkness and work with our darkness. Yet it's also very important to decipher. What am I trying to say? Like, it's very important to decide and be very clear with if you are working in the light or if you are working in the dark. And what is your intention upon your spiritual journey? I don't know if you really stated to yourself, like, you know what? I am a worker of light. I am here for the highest and best good. And may I continue to be guided through from my highest self to show up in the world in this way. Okay. That's really important. And it's so beautiful to really, shine some light on this, because this is what holding sacred circles is all about. Okay. And so I'll just move on so that we can really get into the meat and potatoes of it all. So when you're wanting to work with the spirit realm or are already doing that, it's crucial to have a way to protect yourself. Okay. Because the universe, spirit realm is filled with all kinds of energies that can just cruise their way into and out of your life. And sacred circles are a great way to establish that energetic boundary that determines what is allowed in and what's casted outside of the circle. Okay, so holding yourself in a sacred circle helps strengthen your intentions, like I was talking about earlier, your intentions of working with the light. And it creates a sacred container for you to raise your vibration, for you to set your intentions, for you to do some healing work, and so on and so forth. Okay. So, and just to be clear, like, there are so many ways that you can work with sacred circles. And it's beautiful. And so I'm going to share with you how other ways that not just like on a full moon ceremony, like other ways where, that I'm like, you know what, I need to open up a circle for myself because I'm experiencing this. And even though I'm not really doing a ritual, or like it's not a thematic, well, I guess it is. Anyway, I'm going to move on. But yeah, so there are so many other ways that you can work with sacred circles. Okay. And some examples are, if you're having a really hard day or you can't seem to move through a heavy emotion, like depression, let's say, you can open a sacred circle to support you in processing what's going on and get extra energetic support from the guides that you're working with. And once you feel like you've moved through some energies, or like you've really helped complete this process, or at least help take the edge off a little bit, it's all situational. But once you feel like, okay, I feel a lot better than when I did before. And I think, for today, we're just going to close this up, and I can open another one later if I need more support. Right. And so another example can be if you're thinking of working with some plant medicine. All right. I highly, highly suggest that you open a sacred circle for your intentional plant journey and closing the circle when you're completely done with it. Okay. Especially if like you're going to be with other people or whatever, like I think it really helps not only get clear with your intentions and why you're working with this plant medicine, but also connecting with the spirit of the plant. That's really, really important. And you can do that within the circle. Okay. So another example could be if you're about to have like a significant experience, like an exciting interview or an urgent surgery came up that you have to go to, or even a difficult conversation with a loved one. That's a good one. Then holding yourself in a sacred circle will help you feel supported in those experiences. And honestly, if you ever feel called to open a sacred circle for yourself in any situation, please do. Okay. Because the more that you practice holding sacred circles for yourself, the easier it gets, the more gracefully you'll be able to connect with the spirit realm, and the more comfortable you'll be with including other people in your spiritual practices that you want to work with. Yeah, like if someone's like, oh, I want to do a full moon intro, what are you doing? And like, oh, I want to come over, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can actually help each other or help the other person that wants to be a part of your practice by including them in your sacred circles. All right. So let's get into all of the fine details on how to do this. All right. So we're going to dive into all of that on how you can open and close a sacred circle of protection, of healing, of transformation and manifestation. And I mean, so much more. Right. So here we go. Now we're going to get into the steps. All right. So step number 1 is, once you realize that a sacred circle is called for, you're going to clarify what the circle is intended for and find a comfortable time and place to open it. So if you're like, hey, you know what, right now a sacred circle would really, really help me out right now. Then you would say, okay, what's this sacred circle for? Oh, there's a new moon coming up, right? Okay, I'm gonna, the new moon comes, you're going to do your thing. You're intending, I'm going to open the sacred circle for my new moon intentions. And then you'll find that proper place to do it, whether it's at home, if you're outside. Sometimes actually when I felt like I was like, even in the car, when I was like going somewhere, I'm like, oh man, you know what? I just need some extra support before I arrive to this place. I would open up a sacred circle in my car even, and like speaking out loud, being like, okay, this is what this circle is for. This is how I need support, yada, yada, yada. Okay, so that's step 1. Once you realize you need a sacred circle, clarify your intention for the sacred circle and find a comfortable time and place to do it. All right. Step number 2 is to energetically cleanse yourself or any other person that's taking part with you, and the space around you, if you can. Like, I know I said when I was doing it in the car, I kind of had to go on the fly, and I did my best with what I had. But I'm still really glad that I did it, because it definitely helped. So different ways you can energetically cleanse yourself in the space is with smoke. So I'm sure we're familiar with using white sage. There's other herbs that you can use too, but white sage, palo santo, which is wood, and copal, which is a tree resin. Those are like my top 3 favorite ones to help cleanse the space. And you can use other things like cedar or rosemary. And you can also work with water. So I have something like agua de Florida that I've made in ceremony. And so I'll spray some of that. If you have some other water that you've worked with, or some like blessing water, or you have some essential oils, or like in a hydrosol or something, you can also do white sage hydrosol. That's really great. Also with sound, you can use a singing bowl to help clear the energy in the room. I've got some wind chimes over here that are really, really helpful. And I even have this like singing pyramid thing that's over on my shelf. But anyway, you can do that, or even a drum. You can use a drum to also open up the circle and like call the guides and guardians, which I'll get into in just a moment. So yeah, using smoke, water, and sound. And honestly, when it comes down to it, use your voice, use the power of your intention to clear out the space. Okay. Like I want you to be able to open a sacred circle and hold yourself and close it, even if you're on the go, even if you have nothing around, okay? Because your intention and the use of your power, and sometimes even I'm a big dancer, so I like to use my body to help kind of amplify and channel the energy of what I'm working with. So you can do that too. Okay, now third step is to open the sacred circle. Now, if you do not have any tools, you can use your dominant pointer finger to project divine white light in a clockwise motion around you. Okay, so it would look like something like this. You would point your finger, and you could say something like, okay, I call forth divine white light to emanate through me and through my finger to open the sacred circle. For me to show people how to do it themselves. That's my intention for this circle, right? And so I would imagine a white light projecting out of my finger, and I would go clockwise. So I don't know, it might be mirrored in the way that you see me on video right now. But anyway, I go clockwise to open it. So I would move it all around behind me and to the front. Okay. And that's that. The sacred circle, that energetic boundary is set. Okay. Now, if you do have something like selenite, that's my number one. Okay. I've got a couple here. This is my super fancy one. I love this one. Super fancy. It doesn't have to be that fancy, but selenite is really powerful because it is like white light. It doesn't ever have to be cleared. And it's just, to me, it's just like pure light that just emanates from this selenite, from any selenite. Okay. And so what I would do if I were even you can have a selenite that's like this big. I have another one that's a little bit smaller, but it is polished. You could have it raw. It doesn't really matter. A piece of selenite is all you need if you're going to work with tools. I love working with crystals. And so I would point it just as I was doing with my finger, and I would set the intention. I'm opening a circle of divine white light for this reason, right? And so I would move it behind me. Now with the tool, I grab with the other hand and I do bring it forward and down. Okay. I would say use your intuition. If you're just like, you know what, I've got something in my hand here and you're on the go or something and you just want to do the one hand, boom, 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 that's cool too. And so that's one way to open a sacred circle with tools. Okay. And then that could be it. It could be as simple as that, to open a circle of divine white light to protect you and to help you with your work. Now, one thing that I always do, I was taught the Lakota medicine wheel. Okay. There are many, many, many different medicine wheels, and they have different correspondences to each direction. And so it's really up to you and what calls to you most. Now, if you don't work with the medicine wheel, that's cool. That's totally fine. But if you do, or you want to, this is something that I can show you here. So I would call to the 4 sacred gateways, the cardinal directions, because in the medicine wheel that I work with, the direction of east, which is where we always begin, is also corresponded to the element of air. Okay. And so when we call to the guides and guardians of the Eastern Gateway, element of air, we can invite that energy in to also help hold the container with us. Okay. And then we turn clockwise to open the guides and guardians of the Southern Gateway, element of fire. We would call them into the sacred circle to help support us. Then the guides and guardians of the Western Gateway, element of water. They would come in, we would invite them into the sacred circle to help us. Then we would turn to the guides and guardians of the Northern Gateway, element of earth. They would come in and complete that 4 cardinal direction circle. And that could be enough too. Now, another layer of guides and guardians that you can call forth, because this is kind of like the east, south, west, north is kind of like a horizontal plane, right? But we also have a vertical axis, and the vertical axis has the upper realm, the middle realm, and the lower realm. Okay, and so we would call to the guides and guardians of the upper realm. This will then incorporate 7 sacred directions, right? The 4 cardinal and the 3 realms, above, middle, and below. So the guides and guardians of the upper gateway, of the upper realm, which is like the star gateways, the ascended masters, the angelic realms, which is nice if you're calling in like archangels or anything like that. You can call them into the circle to support you. The guides and guardians of the middle realm, which is like the here, the now, this present moment, the community that we are all a part of, even the spirit guides that are here working with you in this particular lifetime, they can be invited into this realm or into this circle from the middle realm. And then the lower realm, which is the planetary realm, the bone kingdom, the mineral kingdom, the ley lines and vortex points that connects all across the earth and connects us all across the earth as well, right? This is kind of like the sacred record keeper of our time, as I like to say it. So we would invite the lower realm into our sacred circle to help us. And so then there's that really three-dimensional spirit guide support system here with us. And of course, if you're working with any other guides, you know, Pachamama, Isis, Metatron, like it's really up to you, any particular ancestors, whatever. You would call them into the sacred circle and then boom, they're all ready to go. Okay. So yeah, and then after that, the sacred circle is open and it's ready. So then that moves into the fourth step of continuing your intentional work. Okay, so this could be doing the ritual that you wanted to do for the new moon, right? You're doing all the stuff. You're going through your journey. You take in the plant medicine that you're doing, or let's say you are having a really rough day and you just need to cry it out. You just need to move through the sadness that you feel. You would be mindful of this energetic support and try to help yourself. Okay. Now, sometimes, depending on what's going on, I might be in a sacred circle for a whole week. And I do my best to remember that. And so I'm kind of like paying a lot more attention to my intuition because I've got all the guides and guardians here helping me through my despair, my state of despair. And so I'm intuitively being led to like, okay, work with this crystal. Okay, listen to this podcast. There's a message here for you. Okay, call this person and, seek some more support. So it's really up to you how long or short you want to be within that sacred circle. And then once you're done, once the ritual is complete, the plant medicine journey is complete, and things are coming to a closure, you can then express some gratitude before you close the circle. So before you close the circle, what I like to do is express gratitude by giving an offering. Okay, you can do this in different ways. If you don't have anything to give, if you don't have any tools or like any stuff, you can give your breath. You can, use your breath to breathe out energies of gratitude, energies of love, energies of excitement, or just anything that you want to offer back to the spirit realm for this reciprocity. For an energetic exchange that really helps nourish the relationship between you and your spirit guide or the spirit realm. And so what I like to do is use my breath. I would say, said a prayer. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Here is a breath of gratitude. And I would take a deep inhale and intentionally send that breath, send that energy out to the spirit realm for them to receive it. You can give a piece of your hair and give it to the plants, like birds can use it to help build a nest or whatever. You can also use herbs. Like, let's say you have like a coal going. You can give a little piece of white sage or whatever onto the piece of coal to give an offering for them, a cup of water for them to have. Something that you can say, thank you. Here is my contribution to this beautiful sacred circle and our sacred relationship. Okay. Now you can do that interchangeably. Like I know someone that really makes it a point to, when they approach spirit guides or ancestors, they say thank you first. They express their gratitude, they offer first, and then they ask for what they desire, what they need. Okay, so it's really up to you. Go with your intuition. If giving an offering first before asking what you need feels more in alignment, go for that. If you forget and you just like do the thing and then you're like, oh yeah, here's an offering, that works too. As long as we have this energetic exchange at some point, that's very, very important. Okay. So then the last step, step 6, is closing the sacred circle to complete the experience. All right. So you would basically work backwards. Okay. So when I had started going into opening the circle, you would release the spirits from last to first. Okay. So what I last said was like any archetypes, any, like I brought up Pachamama or Isis or Metatron, right? Like those were the last people I called in. So then I released them first. I work backwards. So I would say, thank you. I release you, boom. And then I probably did like the lower realm. Thank you, I release you. There you go. Middle realm, thank you, I release you. Upper realm, thank you, I release you. And that takes care of the vertical axis. And then coming to the northern gateway, thank you, I release you. Western gateway, thank you, I release you. Southern gateway, thank you, I release you. Eastern gateway, where we started from, thank you, I release you. Okay. And so then I really like doing that because like I can really actually feel the density of space around me to kind of, it kind of feels a little more open. And then the final step, if you used a tool or your hand, you're going to use the tool that you, or your hand, to complete the process. I would say, thank you. This circle is now complete. The work here is done. And I would go counterclockwise, right? Backwards, counterclockwise, all the way around and down. Okay. Or with your finger, point it out all the way around. And I stick with one hand on my finger. Okay. And then it's done. And boom, it really kind of really brings it all to a closure. Let's see. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So, and that was a lot that I went through. So I'm definitely going to go through a summary of it step by step really quick to help refresh the memory. Okay. But one thing that I do want to say here is that this particular method of holding sacred circles has been the only one that I've been taught from my spiritual teacher. Yet it's not the only way to open and close sacred circles. Okay. Like I've taken part of various ceremonies that where the guide has their own practice of holding a sacred circle for their own work that looks totally different than what I just showed you today. Okay. But what I really want to point out is that they knew how to, that they had a method and knew how to activate or actively practice setting a sacred and protective container that they knew how to initiate and carry on and complete the process. Okay. So I just want to suggest that if you're going to be working with people to help guide you through rituals, ceremonies, journeys of any kind, then take a closer look at how they go about handling the experience. Okay. And when in doubt, just open a sacred circle for yourself, especially if you happen to find yourself coming to work with someone that you have like are just meeting for the first time, or like you hardly know anything about them. Then I'd highly recommend taking responsibility of your own energy by establishing a sacred circle before entering that space and experience with another person. Okay. And yeah, because I feel like these sacred circles are this intentional way of like anchoring or protecting ourselves, calling in the divine white light and calling in the guides to help us with this work really sets the quality of the spiritual experience that you're working on or you're embarking on. So this practice is like one of the top mandatory skills that I like to highlight because it really helps set a stable foundation within a couple of the pillars that make up the embodied, like the embodied ritual tapestry, as I like to say. And the first one that the two that it's part of is pillar number 1, which is whole self, love, and care of body, mind, and spirit, right? And you can tell like, when I'm having a hard time or going through some emotional turmoil, I hold myself in a sacred circle to help process this. And that is a way that I can really tend to my body, mind, and spirit in a really holistic manner. And then the other pillar that it's a part of is rituals and ceremonies, right? Because once we get into doing our spiritual work and like getting in touch with moon rituals and this and that, like it's so important to learn, know, and practice how to protect ourselves. Okay. Yeah, this is like number one in my book. So I'm going to go over the step-by-steps really quick, just to remind you, refresh your memory. So step number one is that once you realize that a sacred circle is called for, you're going to clarify what the circle is intended for and find a comfortable time and place to open it. Now, step number two is to energetically cleanse yourself, anyone else that's a part of it, and the space around you if you can, okay? And step number three is to open the sacred circle, right? You can do it with projecting white light with your hand or selenite wand, and then possibly calling in the guides and guardians of the 4 sacred gateways, right? East, south, west, north. And if you want, I kind of only do the vertical gateways or the vertical axis when I'm doing really deep work. When it's like, okay, this is getting serious. Then I call in the guides and guardians of the upper realm, middle realm, and lower realm. And then calling any other archetypes or whoever you're working with, right? And so once that energetic circle is open, then step 4 is continuing your intentional work, okay? Doing all the things that you want to do within the circle. And then step number 5 is expressing gratitude and giving an offering. Of course, you can interchange the step 4 or 5, give an offering first, do the work, or do the work first, give an offering, okay? And step number 6 is to close the sacred circle to complete the experience, right? So you release the guides and guardians, super important. We don't want them hanging around all the time waiting like, are we done here or not, right? So we close the circle, release it, and we transition on with our lives. All right. So yeah, since, I'm a very much a kinesthetic learner, experiential learning, right? And so I really highly recommend that you take part in some ceremonies of trusted people to observe and experience and learn from them and how they establish a sacred container for their work. I've got a few people here, Athena Parakis, which is my main spiritual teacher of Sage Goddess. She holds a lot of rituals and ceremonies on YouTube for free. And the next one that's coming up, I believe is the new moon ceremony. So you can look up Sage Goddess on YouTube. I learned this technique from her. So you will see step by step everything that I just went through. Okay. That's one way to just like experience it, listen to what's happening, and start getting used to that kind of practice so that you can start doing it for yourself. Another person is Christina Lopes. I had been a part of 2 of her activation sessions on YouTube. They were really powerful, really great. And that's actually something else that is a different approach to establishing a container. She doesn't call to like guides and guardians or anything like that, or even uses tools. She calls in the divine light, especially connecting to the divine masculine down through our central channel, down into the earth where it anchors into the earth. And then the divine mother energy comes through and holds that energetic connection, the divine father, divine mother, right, of universal source energy. And I think that's how she does it. That's what I've noticed anyway. I haven't asked her, but I'm like, okay, cool. That's why I went to her a second time because I was like, cool, she gets it. And then when she did the activation, when she was done, she released the anchor points and let us go. Yeah. And so that's a different, she's got plenty of other activations that you can watch the replay on and check it out. So that's another person. Now, if you want to join a Facebook group, you're welcome to join mine. This is how I always hold sacred circles. Okay. So inside the Embodied Leaders Movement Facebook group, I'm going to be holding more rituals and ceremonies. So you can come and join me and see how I do it and practice with me. And, anyone's interested, I may even have a session inside of the Facebook group of just this, of just setting, opening and closing sacred circles so that we can do it together. And then you can ask any questions. We can do it live. And if not, you can always watch the replay. I've got a list of videos there that you can dive into as well. So I do have a link here, embodiedleadersmovement.com. There you can join me and get an experience of what it's like to open and close sacred circles. And maybe we can do a little workshop session together and do more, like one-on-one, like this is the thing, right, that we're doing. So yeah. And I think that's it. Woo! All right. So I'm going to take that one off. Cool. All right, y'all. That's all I have for you today. Yeah, this is a really, really important one. It's been so helpful in my life in so many ways. And I really, really hope and can't wait to hear if you've experienced being held in a sacred circle in this way. I'd love to know. So yeah. All right, y'all, take care. I'll see you next week. And yeah, I love ya. Ciao.